Welcome everybody to another video of Ancient Greece Reloaded. Today we will talk about Hecuba or Hecabe, the famous queen of Troy. By the way, if you like the video, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so as to stay tuned for upcoming videos. Overall, Hecuba, in ancient Greek Hecabe, was a queen in Greek mythology and the wife of King Priam of Troy during the Trojan War. She had 19 children who included major characters of Homer's Iliad, such as Hector, Paris and the prophetess Cassandra. Two of them, Hector and Troilus, are said to have been born as a result of Hecuba's having made love with the god Apollo. Ancient sources vary as to the parentage of Hecuba. According to Homer, Hecuba was the daughter of King Demas of Phrygia, but Euripides and Virgil write of her as the daughter of the Thracian king Chryseis. The mythographers Pseudo-Apollodorus and Hyginus leave open the question of which of the two was her father, with Pseudo-Apollodorus adding a third alternative option. Hecuba's parents could as well be the river god Sangarius and Metope. In short, depending which source you study, her parentage may vary. King Priam himself may have fathered as many as 68 sons and 18 daughters. The story of Hecuba takes place before, during and after the Trojan War, and includes a number of battles and encounters with the gods. Hecuba's pregnancy with Paris would prove to be a restless one, and it reached a climax with the advent of a prophetic dream. In her dream, rather than giving birth to a normal baby, she brought forth a fiery torch covered in snakes. She sought out the prophets of Troy to interpret this dream, and they revealed that it was a troubling omen. The omen predicted that if her child lived, he would be responsible for the fall and the destruction of Troy. Hecuba could not bear this news, and as Paris was born, she ordered two of her servants to kill him. The servants were unable to murder a helpless baby, but instead left Paris on the side of a mountain to be eaten by wild beasts. But a shepherd soon did find Paris and raised him as his own son. Many years later, Paris returned to Troy and initiated the Trojan War by stealing Helen, the wife of King Menelaus, from Sparta, as well as some of the treasure. Since all of Helen's suitors had sworn to defend Helen and her husband, they declared war on Troy, and in the end, Troy was sacked and burned, thus fulfilling the prophecy made. Hecuba's involvement in the Trojan War included receiving advice from her son Hector when he returned to Troy. She offered the libation cup to him, urging him to make an offering to Zeus and also to drink from it himself. Hector went on to advise his mother to make a deal with Athena, in which she would offer a gown from their most valued treasures to the goddess in exchange for help. The gown in question was beautifully embellished with embroidery, glittering like a star whenever it caught even a hint of light. The gown had been brought back from Sidon and was the work of Sidonian women. Thus, Hecuba led the Trojan women to the temple of Athena to pray for help. But Hecuba's efforts went unanswered. Sometime later, Hecuba pleaded with Hector not to confront Achilles, but Hector would not follow his mother's pleas. That evening, Hector dueled with Achilles and met his death. When Hecuba later heard of Priam's plan to retrieve Hector's body from Achilles' camp, she became anxious at the thought of losing both husband and son in the same day. Hecuba lamented Hector's death in a great speech, for he was the dearest of all her children. Farther along in the same episode, she offers Priam the libation cup and instructs him to pray to Zeus so that he may receive a favorable omen upon setting out towards the Achaean camp. Unlike in the first episode, in which Hector refuses her offer of the cup, Priam accepts and is rewarded with the requested omen. As stated, Hecuba would have a child with Apollo, and another prophecy was made. If Troilus were to live until he was 20 years of age, Troy would not fall, despite the previous prophecy for Paris. But Achilles waited in ambush, while Troilus was riding his horse near a well in front of Troy. Troilus fled to the temple of Apollo and was slain at the altar. Then he was dragged by his own horses, sealing the fate of the city towards doom and ruin, in fulfillment of the omen. Hecuba appears 6 times in the Iliad, one when she meets Hector upon his return to Troy and offers him the libation cup, 2 when she leads the Trojan women to the temple of Athena to pray for help. In another of her appearances, she pleads with Hector not to fight Achilles, expressing her bad premonition. Her next appearance is when she is stricken with anxiety upon hearing of Priam's plan to retrieve Hector's body from Achilles' hut. Farther along in the same episode, she offers Priam the libation cup and instructs him to pray to Zeus so that he may receive a favorable omen upon setting out towards the Achaean camp. Finally, she laments Hector's death in a well-known speech. Hecuba herself would survive the sacking of Troy. At that point in time, only Helenus, who had previously departed from Troy, Polyxena, Cassandra, and potentially Laodice were still alive. Hecuba, like Cassandra, Andromache, and other women of Troy would become prisoners of the Achaean forces, and Hecuba was given to Odysseus as his share of the spoils of war. There was still more heartache for Hecuba though, for she would witness the sacrifice of her youngest daughter Polyxena upon the tomb of Achilles. For it was said that her sacrifice was called for by the ghost of Achilles, and that her death might give the Achaean fleet fair winds to home, just as the sacrifice of Agamemnon's daughter Iphigenia was said to have brought fair winds to Troy. Moreover, it was said that on the same day as the sacrifice of Polyxena, the body of Polydorus, the youngest son of Hecuba, washed up on the beach near the Achaean camp. Hecuba and Priam had sent their youngest son to Thrace to ensure his survival, with the care of Polydorus being given to King Polymestor. Nevertheless, Polymestor killed Polydorus when he heard that Troy had fallen, possibly to gain friendship from the Achaeans and to gain the Trojan treasure that had accompanied Polydorus to Thrace. After Hecuba found out the truth, she sent a message to Polymestor asking the king to come to Troy, with the promise of revealing where the rest of the Trojan treasure was hidden. Obviously, Hecuba was feigning ignorance of the fact that she knew that Polymestor had killed her son. Although Agamemnon knew very well what Hecuba was doing, he supported her actions. Well, Agamemnon being in a welcoming mood, for Hecuba's daughter Cassandra was now the Mycenaean king's concubine. Thus, Polymestor came to Troy as an Achaean ally. Once he entered Hecuba's tent, Polymestor and his two sons found themselves in the midst of a number of Trojan women, and suspecting no trap, Polymestor let his guard down. Then the women drew daggers and killed the two sons of Polymestor, and whilst the king of Thrace was held down, Hecuba stepped out his eyes. Agamemnon, though, refused to punish Hecuba or the other Trojan women's actions, for he saw it was as just punishment for the murder of Polydorus, who had been taken in for safekeeping. Another story says that when she was given to Odysseus as a slave, she snared and cursed at him, so the gods turned her into a dog, allowing her to escape. Another legend has it that Hecuba threw herself into the sea and was transformed into a ashy dog with fiery eyes, and that she was buried in a wretched place called Kinosimon, aka Dog's Grave, a landmark for sailors. Finally, Stesichorus states that after the sack of Troy, Apollo, Hecuba's former lover, took her to safety and placed her in Lycia. Finally, we will talk real quick about the fate of Hecuba's children, grandchildren and her husband during the 10 years of fighting and the sacking of Troy. Antiphus was killed by Agamemnon during the war. Hector was killed by Achilles during the war. Troilus was killed by Achilles during the war. Hipponus was killed by Achilles during the war. By the way, he was the last Trojan killed by Achilles. Paris was killed by Philoctetes during the war. Diphobus was killed by Menelaus during the sack of Troy. Polites was killed by Neoptolemus during the sack of Troy. Pammon was killed by Neoptolemus during the sack of Troy. Polydorus was killed by Polymestor in Thrace as Troy fell. Helenus survives the war, becomes a Greek king of Epirus and weds Andromache. Laodice potentially survives the war and is set free, or else disappears into a chasm created by the gods. Creusa dies during the sack of Troy, being unable to keep up with Aeneas. Polyxena was sacrificed upon the tomb of Achilles. Cassandra becomes a concubine of Agamemnon and is killed upon her arrival in Mycenae. Finally, King Priam himself was killed by Neoptolemus, having strapped on his old armor for one last battle, despite the pleas of Hecabe to seek sanctuary in one of Troy's temples. Let us finish with the following saying: Remember the favor you have received, and forget the favor you have given. Menander. That being said, remember guys to hit the like button and to subscribe to our channel, it would help us a lot. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for upcoming videos.